5v5 is better than 6v6, and if you stick around for a couple minutes, you'll understand why. So first things first, I am a Diamond Peak support main, and I have also, for some unbeknownst reason to me, been placed in Diamond for all the rest of my roles. Take it with a grain of salt. These comments and perspectives are coming from someone who falls way more into the casual side of Overwatch. Before I get started, I do want to mention that this video is entirely drummed up and inspired by the SVB 5v5 versus 6v6 debate. Truthfully, it is really hard to watch because they're all yelling over each other because they're very passionate about this topic, but I think that the points they were trying to make were good points. They just weren't being articulated in a way that most non-professional players can digest. So I'm just going to put forth a couple of the biggest reasons that I truly believe 5v5 is better than 6v6 in a shorter form, quicker and to the point video. So first and most importantly, tank was the least fun role to play. It was the most stressful, the most demanding. When I'm saying tank, I mean like the main tanking. Some people really did enjoy playing like the main Reinhardt, the main Sigma. Some people really enjoyed that, but by the end of Overwatch 1, it was very obvious that most players did not enjoy the tanking experience. And also, on top of that, as we are in this current game, competitive and quick play are two different animals. In competitive, you're going to see a lot more form and structure because players are trying to win, whereas in quick play, they're just having fun. And this would result in terrifying combinations such as Wrecking Ball Reinhardt, where the two tanks really had no business playing together, and they're each sort of playing their own style of game. Now, of course, we can also talk about the crazy amounts of CC in the game with May Freeze on her primary, with Blizzard as well. We could talk about CC in other forms, such as a hack from Sombra, Cassidy's old flashbang. There were so many stuns in the game. Doomfist punching. Being a tank just felt terrible. Because like if you were playing Reinhardt and you were about to shatter and you get punched out of shatter, it just feels terrible. Overall, even though some people really enjoyed playing synergies between the tanks, such as Ryan Zarya, Winston Diva, in the end, most players were getting tired of how strong some tanks felt. And on top of that, most players didn't like the stress of having sort of everything on their shoulders to carry the game. In the end, going from two tanks to one tank does put more pressure on the one tank, but at the same time, that one tank has been souped up just enough to make the game more interesting for them. They do control the tempo of the match. There's different ways you can play the game, and now there's one less player to mess around with combinations, and it's a bit more streamlined to the point. And that leads me to the second point, which is 6v6 was too slow. In the conversation, the podcast, SVB, Hawk kept talking about the poke fight, where in a lot of professional play, both teams would mirror each other. Once these two tanks finish duking it out and the cooldowns are all drained up, they go in and they attack with an opening. The problem is, Overwatch isn't fun to watch in the poke phase. Overwatch is fun when the brawl begins, and they kind of realized it. The developers kind of noticed that people just sitting up on high ground on Temple of Anubis with a bastion behind two shields wasn't fun. It wasn't engaging. It's terrible. Same goes for Bastion Bunker on Horizon Lunar Colony. First point, overall, it's just this poke phase. There was two tanks. It just never, it was so slow. The game didn't feel that fast. It wasn't very engaging for most players. I also want to add that technically by the game playing faster, dying is significantly more punishing than it was in 6v6. If you lose a DPS in 6v6, the fight can continue. If you lose a support in 6v6, the fight can continue as long as it wasn't the primary, the primary support, not the secondary, right? But in 5v5, losing a DPS is kind of bad. Losing your tank, fight's over, regroup, get out. If you're losing a support, fight might be about to end depending on how the tank is playing right now as the support dies. There's way more individual moments where you need to make better positioning calls, better duel, you need to get into duels and win the duels more. There's way more at stake in every fight, and that is what makes the game a lot more engaging to play, in my opinion. And last, this is just, we're going to talk about what I think the term is agency. I don't know a better term for it, but there's more agency that's been given to the DPS and the support categories because of the tank being removed. So back in the day, when you had tank synergies that were just dominating play, like, I don't know, Zarya and Winston. Winston jumps on the Ana, and Zarya puts out her Matrix, and Ana cannot fight back. She cannot do anything unless the entire enemy team was waiting for this and can peel for her the fight's over, Ana's down, and that's it. So sometimes, because the two enemy tanks were playing a synergy like that, your support just fall over dead. And honestly, being a support back in Overwatch 1 felt like you hated yourself. You hated your life, and you just wanted to feel miserable all the time. And that's why you kept playing support into synergies like this. Now there's more agency. The DPS really need to look for a pick, or pound some damage into the tank to make them back up, or try to pick the support in the backline. The support need to be either directly dueling another support, dueling the DPS who's flanking, or actively engaging and supporting another player on your team. There's more to do. The supports have more jobs now. Even though they're not healing the second tank, that gives you the time to fight. That gives you the moments you need to look for openings and try to win a fight more. And by them distributing the power off of a tank, giving the one tank a little more power, and then giving the DPS and the support more of that agency, it makes the game feel like any one of the roles, the best player in the game could be on any of these three roles, and you can feel their impact firsthand. If your Ana is playing an S tier game, you're going to notice, you're going to feel it, and that Ana is going to be, to some degree, carrying your tank. And if the tank isn't playing that good, your Ana will be able to enable that tank to win the game. I'm not saying that stomps don't happen, and I'm not saying that the stomps feel better in Overwatch 2 than they do in Overwatch 1, but just the fact that there's one less player gives everyone else in the lobby more room to work with. But in the end, regardless of my opinions on these topics or the player base's opinions, it was very obvious that the Blizzard team decided to make the move to 5v5 because they obviously had data that suggested that the tank role could not be sustained in a 6v6 format. Tanking was the least popular role at the death of the game, for the original game, and it was very, very clear that they weren't sure that they could bring back that raw interest players had. So, and yes, we know that adding new content to one of the roles does bring back activity for a while, but then when the content dies, when we get to an off season, tank usually winds up being the least popular role. And the only reason that we're filling games up a little faster is because there's only one tank and not two in every game. I did actually play a Overwatch workshop mode 6v6. I got a code off of one of the community share sites, and I did play a couple rounds with 6v6. Honestly, it is kind of fun playing old Orisa alongside of a random tank. I think I had Doomfist for half the round, and then I think it was Winston near the end. Orisa Winston, who would have thought? It was kind of fun to have that old gameplay, but I honestly could only play a few rounds before I'm like, no, I kind of just want to go get back on 5v5. It's definitely better. But yes, in the end, this is the way it is, and we all have to get used to it. So, yeah, let me know if you guys agree with my takes in the comments down below, and I will see you all next time.